Racloir stone tool is a stone tool that is greatly associated with Neanderthals. Specifically that Maastrichtian Neanderthal culture that existed between that 160,000 to 40,000 years before present. And essentially, it's a stone flake, but it's a stone flake with a bit of intent and purposes. It is a scraper, but a scraper that's ultimately used kind of like a multi-tool. It's great for scraping hides, great for scraping wood, and sometimes it's even used as a knife. Yes, it is a stone flake, but there is some practice and purpose and intent behind ancient Neanderthals 40,000 to 160,000 years ago creating them. The Racloir isn't just a, hey, this flake might work well. It was made specifically by Neanderthals. When you look at a Racloir, it's typically got some mass to it. And a good Racloir is going to have some sort of backing or flat side across the top. It's going to give the user pretty much a handle. There's going to be kind of a beveled edge, and there's going to be a light amount of work or retouches on it. Over time and over use, the user is going to kind of not necessarily pressure flake, but ultimately just address with some sort of stone cobble to kind of raise that bevel or give it a little bit more sharpness. All of these Racloirs have a little bit of mass, an easy handle, and a very distinct edge that allows a person to scrape bark, scrape hide, whatever that case may be. Even this Racloir here that I've actually used on deer hides fits those general characteristics. More of a bulbous end with a flat side that's great to work in the hand, and a clearly defined edge where you can see a user scraping with it. This is a great little scraping tool. The Racloir is designed to fit perfectly in someone's hand to scrape that animal hide, ultimately removing the flesh, the membrane, and even the hair. That Maastrichtian Neanderthal culture, they were making them with intent. It wasn't just, oh, this flake is going to work. I'm sure that happened, but with such the universality of the tool as far as a scraper and probably a slicer and maybe even something to score around trees with, the Racloir was made purposely for that scraping practice. All right, options. Let's think. This one's kind of got some irregular shapes, but I like these little amoebas and these nodules because it gives you a little bit of something to maybe focus on to remove. Like that could be the handle, this could be that kind of back end of that Racloir scraper. Yeah, try that one. That's an interesting piece. Alright, I like this one. Let's use that one. When we think of a Racloir, especially for the practices of scraping, we're not looking at a thinning flake. Something like this is a thinning flake. Yeah, you could turn that into maybe a really thin projectile or some sort of tool, but a Racloir scraper, because this is still a chunk of stone removed, when we look at these two, we can see this has more of an application for scraping and scoring and even cutting compared to a thinning flake like this. So the goal is to remove big, fat, thick flakes that we can gently address the edge and have some scrapers. So to remove flakes that are more robust, we're going to use hard hammer. Soft billets for thinning, hard hammers really for removing mass. Even that guy right there, backed on this side, a little bit more bulbous. It's a little shallow, but it could still be worked. Set it off to the side. Oh, look at that, busted, no big deal. So even that right there, kind of a flat back. I could readdress this edge. This could be worked into a Racloir scraper. That right there, that's a good one. Flat backed, kind of bulbous. I got big hands, I could definitely get this in my hands, scrape, score, cut with it. That's a great option. Another good one. One thing that archaeologists come across in many digs, many of the Racloir are kind of cortex free. There's not a lot of cortex on there, but it doesn't mean that something like this couldn't be used. Option. 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 I like it. I like it. Definitely scraper material. Let's take these 3 flakes out of all the bunches that I broke off. All of these have mass, all of these have somewhat of a handle. Now I'm going to give them some small minor adjustments to make them into that Neanderthal Racloir scraper. Just with the hammerstone, it's kind of addressing the edges. Create that nice straight edge. We'll switch to the hammerstone. There we go. Smooth out any potentially sharp spots. You've got one scraper, flat edge that I could just continuously, as it gets worn, just pop little flakes off, making sure it's nice and straight. Little bulbous top, it's flat, fits good in the hands. Scraping, no problem. Go. One more. Good in the hand. Scrape away. Let's use this big guy. Let's one more Racloir stone scraper. Now, aside from scraping hides, the flesh, the membrane, the hair off an animal skin, Racloirs are also used in the scraping of bark and the shaping of wood. Because essentially, you can still scrape with this. You can scrape soft materials. You can scrape a harder material like bark and wood. Let's use this one I just created. Bad. Let's try this big boy. No issues whatsoever. So bottom line, the Racloir stone scraper was very likely a universal tool. It made sense when they're thinning out stones, when they're making those specific Moustrian style points. Very likely had big flakes, took advantage of those big flakes, turning them into Racloir scrapers. It's also very likely that they just made scrapers for the purpose of, scraping hides, cutting of plant fibers and barks, scraping wood, as well as using it as a knife. All of those are very simple applications for the Racloir stone scraper. All right, that's how you make a Racloir. Appreciate you watching.